Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Estate Steals, Deals, and Opportunities. And today we are going to answer this very popular question. Do you need a real estate license to invest in real estate? This is the number one most commonly asked question that we hear. So what is the answer and why? Let's talk about that today and see how close or far away you are from investing in real estate based on your license status. No is the answer. In fact, anyone over the age of 18 can buy and sell real property without a real estate license. A common misconception to this statement arises when an investor assigns a contract. So when people are new to real estate investing, a lot of people hear from traditional real estate professionals that you have to have a license to do this. And non-traditional folks who are already investing in real estate have already learned that you do not. However, let's talk about this little area of confusion that you'll run into undoubtedly if you're looking to invest in real estate. So when you introduce a seller and a buyer for a fee, because a transaction actually closes, and you are compensated by the seller, then you must have a real estate license to do that. In other words, you are not a party to the transaction, you have no legal interest in the real estate, but you are being paid by the seller for bringing that buyer, and a closing actually takes place. Then you must have a real estate license to earn a fee for doing that. So on the other side of that coin, when you are the buyer in an executed real estate contract, you can assign your rights in that contract to another buyer, being paid by the buyer, not the seller. This particular method does not require a real estate license and is perfectly legal. Now, there are various rules and ethics throughout the United States that govern this practice, but you do not need a real estate license to do this. Let's talk about why. So the fee that the buyer pays you is called an assignment fee. It's not a real estate commission. Commissions are usually paid because you acted like a realtor, bringing a buyer and a seller together in a transaction. So sometimes buyers pay agents to find them a home, and sometimes sellers pay agents to find them a buyer. In both of those cases, either party can pay you and compensate you, but if you are not a party to the real estate contract or have a legal interest in the house, let's say that, then you are acting as a real estate agent, and you cannot earn a fee legally without that license. So having a legal interest in the real property by way of a signed real estate contract with you as the buyer in that contract is what makes this practice absolutely legal. And in that case, you do not need a real estate license. So it's, again, the legal interest in the real property. In other words, if I'm going to put a contract together with a property, I like the property, I think it's a steal at $100,000, and I sign a contract to buy that property for $100,000, and the seller executes the contract as well, then I have a legally binding piece of paper, right? It's a contract for $100,000. Now, this is my legal interest in that real property. So now this is what gives me the right legally to market and sell my interest in this piece of property by way of this contract. So when I do that, the seller is still getting his $100,000, but the buyer is going to pay me a fee called an assignment fee for assigning my rights and interest in this piece of paper, which is my contract, right, to take my position as the buyer in this transaction. So, for example, let's say that I have a buyer who's willing to pay $125,000 for that house. Well, that difference being $25,000 would be my assignment fee. So on the closing statement, the seller would be receiving the $100,000 he's agreed to. He's not paying anybody anything because I'm the buyer. And the buyer on his side of the closing statement would have a line item called an assignment fee for $25,000, and that's how I would get paid. So it would increase the cost that the buyer's bringing to the closing table, but it would be compensating me because he's going to buy my rights in that contract. Now that is called wholesaling. Some people call it flipping, but the terminology is called wholesaling, and you do not need a real estate license to do that. Okay, so let's move on. I hope that I'm explaining this clearly, because that's a tricky, point for a lot of people when they're learning this. Now, when you buy, fix and flip, and sell your own properties, you can do so without a real estate license or agent. You do not need to be licensed. You do not even need a real estate agent involved in the transaction. Okay, in most of the United States, as far as I know, this is still the law and the practice. And of course, wherever you're located, you can double check all this information as valid. And make sure that you are talking to non-traditional real estate professionals, because even traditional real estate professionals do not realize that this is the case in most instances. So I do this for a living, in both as a broker and as a wholesaler, and I'm very aware of the law in my area. Okay, so the transaction of you selling your own property, whether you own it in the name of a corporation or you own it personally, doesn't matter. It's yours. You do not need to be licensed to do that. It's perfectly legal for you to sell your own property. Now, you can, of course, agree to pay an agent to bring you a buyer and compensate that agent. And that person who brings you a buyer must be licensed in order to receive compensation from you legally. All right, so let's wrap this up again. Okay, so you don't need to be licensed to purchase real estate either, all right? You do not need a real estate license. And if a realtor is involved in helping you find properties and you have obtained the services of this realtor and you have executed a buyer's agent agreement, then you have agreed to pay the buyer's agent, your agent, for finding you a property. The seller may agree to pay him as well. So there are different types of agents that have different roles in the transactions, and you're going to decide who you're going to use and how you're going to work with them. So if you are licensed, you are legally required to disclose that you hold that real estate license when communicating with a seller. So if you are an investor and you do have a real estate license, then you are required by law to disclose to the seller that you have a real estate license, although you are simply working with him to buy his home, not list his home or act as an agent in any way. All right, so now, the possible issue that a licensed investor may have is when a seller contacts them as an agent, not a buyer. So here's where it gets a little gray, and I'm very clear on the way that we do this. So I'm going to explain to you how to do this in a very clear way so that you're not even on the verge of breaking any laws. All right, so if a seller is calling you to list their home and their home's worth $200 and they're like, look, I want $100, I want to close quickly, just get me $100,000, can you do that, Mr. Agent? And you say, well, shoot, I'm comping this thing, and for $100,000, I'll take it. Well, if they called you as a listing agent because you've got marketing out there that you are a listing agent and they're calling you in that hat, then you have a fiduciary duty to work with them as a listing agent. Now, you might want to contact, your lawyer or the real estate commission of your state and say, can I legally buy this home and turn into a buyer? What disclosures do I need? First of all, I would explain to the seller, well, I see the values of your home for fixed up are $200,000. May I ask why you only want $100,000? Is your home in some type of bad condition? Is there a reason? And they might say, yes, I know exactly what my house is worth. I just want $100,000. I don't care. Now, that's a completely different situation than enlightening them that it's worth $200,000 and they change their mind. Okay, so you're kind of in a gray area there because they called you as an agent. Now, if you want to buy houses, then don't take listing calls, okay? All of the marketing that we do at our company is to buy properties. My phone does not ring with anyone asking me to list their home. They call me to buy their home. My duty, since I hold a license, is to express to them that I do have a real estate license, and I have to disclose that by law. So here I am disclosing it, but I am looking to purchase your property, not list it. Now, if they call me as a buyer, I can always put on the listing agent hat if they want more than I can pay for it, the home is in good shape, and I just think it's in the best interest of the seller to let me list it for them. And, in other cases, and most of the time, that seller has a horrible home, horrible conditions. They need cash. They need quick. They need the services that they called me for as a buyer. And so, you know, the way that we work in our office and our company is what's best for that seller, and then we're going to make sure we're wearing the right hat, we're doing the right thing for them. So if you are an agent who wants to become an investor, but you're still active as an agent because that's your source of income, I understand. But I suggest that you get a separate cell phone. And that separate cell phone, when that one rings, these are the calls that are buyers, people calling you to buy. And your other phone that you currently are using and getting calls on, when that phone rings, you know that you're a listing agent. So you can put on the different hats accordingly when your phone rings. And so we do have a specific marketing phone. As you see, I've got my two phones here. So when this one rings, we're killing ourselves to answer this because this means money, right? This means somebody's calling to sell me their home. And so everyone knows how to answer this. Everyone knows how to take these calls specifically in our office, and we can kind of pass this phone around to who's ever delegated, you know, that day, that weekend, whatever, to not miss these lead calls. But when this one rings, the deals are already going on. I'm talking to my clients, my seller, my buyer, and, you know, I know which hat I'm wearing. That's what we suggest to you so that you're not in the gray area, not in that gray area at all. And so try that out. All right, so it's my personal opinion that obtaining your real estate license does help you become a better real estate investor with more earning potential. So I do encourage my students to get their real estate license. I believe that you have access to so much more education, and, you know, the software of the MLS is the most phenomenal real estate software you can have as a real estate professional wanting, you know, live, on-time information and values. So I believe that you will earn more because of many reasons, okay, that we don't have the time to go into. But others still feel, hey, it's not worth that extra effort or expense to go train and get that license and spend the money, etc. So it's really your call, and you must decide, you know, on your own real estate goals, whether you would benefit from that license or not, and you want it or not. So I would check again with the laws that govern your state, speaking with brokers who are investors, not brokers who are just brokers and work traditional real estate offices. You need the guidance of people who actually do invest, if that's where you're headed, to guide you in your own backyard. And so I hope that this helped you, you know, a lot with understanding whether you need a real estate license or not. You know, I used to joke around that I thought I needed a real estate license, so I went and got one, and turns out all I ever needed was a driver's license. So if you've got your driver's license, you are more than equipped to invest in real estate, and I hope that's what you start doing, and that's why you're, you know, learning from us right now. And so we encourage you, if you are looking to buy property in South Florida, get on our email list. We send out a lot of off-market properties. And if you enjoy what you learned about needing a real estate license to invest, then we encourage you to learn more about real estate investing and other amazing topics online, live through interactive video conference classes at learnfromgreen.com. Because when you increase your knowledge, you increase your income. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we look forward to continuing to educate you.